Hello everyone, and thank you for the introduction. Have you ever wondered how come that some apps grew into something really successful without too much investing? Is that hard work? Is that some special trick? Or just a good luck? My name is Ivana Lubar, and I'm iOS engineer at Runtastic. I would like to share with you today some insights from the company, what kind of apps we have, how do we organize them, and how is it to work at Runtastic. Now, here is our mission. We are a digital health and fitness company based in Austria. And with this mission, we connect ourselves with Adidas. So our goal is that through sport, we have the power to change lives. We are engaging and empowering 1 billion of connected athletes. And let's check some numbers here. So, 2009, that's a year when Runtastic was established. We have 4 people who worked on the app in the beginning. That was just a student project for them. So, that year, they published the app for iOS, and 1 year later, the app for Android was published as well. And just after a year and a half, it started being profitable. Since 2015, we are a proud part of Adidas family, and that makes us very happy because we have a lot of benefits to use from them. 47, that is the number of countries our employees are coming from. And that's something that makes Runtastic culture very special. Just imagine having people from a lot of different parts of the world, and they work on the same goal. Next, 3, that's the number of our offices. Sorry. 3 is the number of our offices. So our employees, they can choose if they will work remotely or in one of our offices. So 1 is in Vienna, then Linz and Salzburg. I work from Vienna. 10, it is the number of languages that we have on our products. And there is an interesting story from Runtastic's beginnings. So imagine that you have a startup. You have one very small app and you want to extend it to be more popular. What can you do? Of course, you can add more languages. But if you don't have enough resources to do so, what should you do? Should you use Google Translate and translate it by yourself? What Runtastic did in this situation is that they asked their users if they are willing to help. And imagine people coming from France, from Italy, from some other countries to Runtastic office in Linz, and they were helping with translations. That way, you have users who are feeling like a part of community. You don't have to spend too much money on localization. And those users who are translating the app, they're already in sport industry. They know what is a pace. They know what are all other sport terms. Next, when it comes to App Store rating, we have like quite high number, 4.65. And when you have an app, and if you're a startup, if you don't know your users, what they need and what they want, you don't know what kind of features you should implement that way. What Runtastic did in the beginning was a bit trick. So before asking users to rate the app on App Store, they introduced another pop-up screen which would ask, hey, would you recommend this app to your friends and family? If they would say yes, they are redirected to App Store rating. If they would say no, they would be redirected to another screen where they can add something what they would improve. That is kind of filtering, but it gave us this number. Next, we have more than 380 million app downloads. And this is quite easy if you're part of Adidas. But if you don't have Adidas as someone who's supporting you, what can you do? And what Runtastic did in their beginnings is that they introduced a feature with which they can promote their app with another apps. So, for example, you just did a run and you're very proud of yourself, you want to share it with your friends and family. And After you share it, your friends can see it and they will be more curious about the app. They will download it or maybe even use it. Anyhow, that helped us to have this number high. Next, 175 is a crazy number, but I will tell you more about it later on. Apps we are working on are Adidas Running and Adidas Training. And since I will be talking about how our code is organized, it would be good that I tell you something about our features, just so that you have a better overview about the app complexity and what kind of features we have in general. So let's start with Adidas Running. I decided to show you 6 features per app. And in Adidas Running, what you can do here is track activity, boost performance, celebrate your success, and you can share your live activity with your followers. And let's go with top 6 features. So number 1 is activity. With this feature, you can share your live activity with your friends. And after you download the app, first screen which you will have after you register and log in yourself is this screen. And default value on the button is running, because that was the first idea of the app when our founders started working on it. But you can change this live activity on the settings button, and you can choose from walking till Zumba dancing, so whatever you like to do. And what is good to say is after you finish your live activity, you can check your progress on the Progress tab. You have the list of your live activities and you can check some statistic if that's something important to you. Next, we have Voice Coach. This is something that can motivate you or during your live activity. For example, you decided that you will run 5 kilometers one day. And then you started feeling a bit tired, but after you get this voice message like you just did first kilometer, you just did your second kilometer, you can feel a bit more motivated and you will continue using it. Next one is live tracking. This is maybe my favorite feature in this app, and with this you can enable live tracking and allow cheering as well. With enabling live tracking, you are sharing your activity with your followers. And with that, they can follow your route and maybe they will get the idea about their next running route. With allow cheering, you allow your followers to cheer you on. And here, you can see different cheering options. And after you click on one of them, there is a nice animation which is shown for this purpose. There are a lot of improvements we can work on this, but everything will be added later on. Next, we have challenges. This is a feature, like you can join to one challenge. And one of the biggest challenge we have, which was most popular, was running for the oceans. And with that challenge, you're not doing just something for yourself. Of course, you do run, but beside that, you can do something for the society. Adidas was donating money with each kilometer you run for cleaning the oceans. So this was something not only for one person, but for the whole society in general. Next one is goal. With this feature, you can set your own goal per month, per day, or per year. For example, you can say, I want to run 50 kilometers this month, and then you can check your progress here. Next one, leaderboard. In leaderboard, you can compare yourself with your followers, and you can see who is the fast runners here. That would be it for the running app, and let's go quickly through features of the training app before we start talking about the code organization. So with the training app, you can work out, you can build strength, stay active and healthy. With this app, you can also select some muscle group with which you can work on. Like I want to work arms on Mondays, legs on Wednesdays, and so on, whatever you decide. Let's start with top features. So the first one, standalone workouts. Here on your left, you can see different options for the workouts. They have different durations and also different workout types. If you choose to work on one of them, you will be asked by the end of the journey how it was for you, if it was too easy, super hard, or something in between. And based on that, next workout, which is similar to that one, which you use, might be something more relevant to you. Next one, featured workout. This feature is something that is good for people who need motivation. So if you open the app, you want to do some workout, but you just don't have the idea what kind of workout you want to do today. This featured workout can help you because this is updated regularly. Next one, guided workouts. If you have some big fans in sport industry, this is a really cool feature for you because that way you can do workouts with your favorite athletes. And also the same way as with previous feature, you will be asked about how it was for you. Next one, workout creator. You can choose part of the body and you can have some personalized workout based on that. Next one, training plans. This is a really cool feature if you want to have some transformation in specific time. For example, 6-week body workout or 12-week body workout, and this feature can help you track your progress. And sixth one, challenges. This is something similar as what we have in Running app. And here we start with shared parts. So features, I just explained, are features per app. Live tracking you have only in Running app, but not in Training. And also some features are only in Training app, but not in Running. But now we have some shared parts that are used on both apps. Challenges is one of it. So here you can see that we have the same design. Button is the same, corner radius the same, colors, logo looks almost the same because both apps are Adidas apps. Next one. After you create an account on Running app, you will be able to log in with that same account on Training app and other way around. The same applies for premium features. If you subscribe for premium in Running app, you will have premium in Training app as well. And with premium features, you can get some personalized workout, you have some more records to follow, and many other things. Next, this is the screen of the feed. On your left is Running app, on your right is the Training app. And what I wanted to say with those screenshots is that feed looks completely the same on those two apps. It doesn't matter if you're logged in with Running or with Training app, you will see all the live activities from your followers. It doesn't have to be only Running or only Training. You will have everything on both apps. Only difference that can be shown there is, for example, in Running app, you can have some promo app of the Training, and same for the other app. Next thing is user profile. Since you have the same account for login with those two apps, if you change something on Running app, it will be updated on the Training app, and other way around. So imagine now that if we decide to change something in user profile, to change something in design or some other shared part, if we would need to do it separately per app, it just wouldn't make sense. We would do like double work for no reason. And what we do there, we are using internal libraries. So internal libraries were used in the beginning only for the shared parts. So for login registration, for some social profile things. And later on, after people at Runtastic realized that this is something that makes sense, they decided to move all the app into the libraries. And you remember the number I showed you in one of the first slides? This is actually the number of the internal libraries we have at Runtastic. And when I just joined the company, I was thinking that I will work on either Running or on Training app. I was not expecting something like this. But after some time, and after you see how onboarding process is really fast, you get used to this kind of working, and this is just something that makes sense. And here on this picture, you can see how our employees are distributed. So, for example, we have 3 tribes here. This is only for product engineering. And in our 3 tribes, the third one is not relevant for the mobile development. They work on web and admin, CRM capabilities, and some other things that don't have any libraries. But for the first and the second one, you can see that each tribe has 5 squads. Those squads are owning different libraries, and with that, there comes responsibility for that specific part of the code. And this way showed us that onboarding of new members comes really fast. For example, new employee can be onboarded in a couple of weeks because he has only a couple of libraries to learn, to maintain, and to know how to work with them. There is no need for everyone to know the code of the whole app, and this is something very useful. I think that it would be the best that I show you this with one example. So here we have user profile, and on this screen, what would you say, how many internal libraries can it be? I mean, after I told you that big number, you can guess that it's something huge. But here we have approximately 10 libraries. So one is for sharing, then one library for basic informations like name, country, biography, and a picture. Then we have separate library for followers and following, library for editing your profile, library for activities, for Adidas runners, then for sports statistic, records. And with this, if you have to change something in one library, it can be a really small change that you just do the change in the library, you release that library version, and then update pods in running and training app. But sometimes it can happen that you have breaking changes because some of the libraries are dependent on each other. So I decided to show you one example here of the followers library. If you do a change in one specific library, it can happen that you test it only in the library build. And that way is more easier than if you have to test everything separately in training and running app. So here you can see that we have some options to choose. You can open followers and following and check out what we have there. But this library is not shown only on user profile. You can access this library from feed, from community tab, which is a second tab on the app. And this way, we reuse part of the codes, because this is something that we use on both apps. Second example I choose to show you is design library. I think that this is really cool when you have to do some redesign of the app. And this way is much more easier if you just need to update the library and then you apply your changes to the running and training app. So here on the slide, you can see all different components, colors, and fonts that we have in our app. And if we want to do a redesign, we just do the change in the library, we release that library, and then update the version in running and training app. And that just sounds simple. It's the way of working at Runtastic. So, first thing when you get a task is that you search for the library that is affected with changes. After you find the library, you need to check if that library has any kind of dependency or if it's the library by itself. Let's assume that we have a library that is independent and you don't have any kind of breaking changes. What you do there? At first, you need to add changes to the library. After you do your changes, and if you're happy with how it looks, if you want to give it to testers to check it out, you need to open pull requests in running and training app where pods are pointed to your working branch in the library. And that way, it's much more easier for testers to check before releasing. After everything is approved, then you're ready to release the library and your work there is done. So, with this, I hope that I gave you some introduction about how the code at Runtastic is organized, and for some potential future iOS developers, you can already know what to expect. And also, something that I would like to say is that not only apps features are something what matters, but also how the code is organized by itself. Because if you have employees who are working on specific part of the app, if they are responsible only for that part, where the responsibility is clear, don't have that much stress and they can publish more features easier way. And for those who are just searching for some fitness motivation, let's add each other to the running and training app. Let's support healthy living style and let's cheer each other on. That would be it.
Just a quick question. How or who decides what's a library and what's not? When you start to work on something, how do you decide if it's going to be added to existing 147 one, or is it going to be a new one?
Thank you very much for the question, and that's actually a really good question. We decide that as a team. So we have tribes like iOS tribe, Android tribe, and so on. And when we see that some part of the app or even one library is too big and you want to split it into more pieces, we just divide. It can be like one library divided into two pieces, or it can be app which has more libraries. So we decided as a team, but there is also team leads who are working with those specific parts, and they are the person who will approve or disapprove that approach.
Another one?
Okay, so if you wanted to use a library, let's say in your training app and then in your running app, but want to make some slight changes in the running app, how would you treat that from the technical side? Would you, I don't know, create some flavor of that library, some new library? How would you approach it?
Competition. Don't answer.
Yeah, no, thank you for the question. Every time when we do even like slight change in the library, we update pods in both apps. So that's just the way of working. So it can be a huge change with a minor release, with major release, or it can be just a patch release, but every time we update pods in our apps.
Okay, but is it possible that, I don't know your use cases, but that you have a certain library which does something, and you want that library to do something just a little bit different in the running app? Is it possible to adapt that library to, I don't know, fit that one particular use case just for the running app and do that other thing for the training app, or would you then create a new library?
Okay, so if we want to treat one library differently in running and training app, if that was your question, then we don't treat it as one library for those two apps. Then we just create another library which is only for the training app and one library which is only for the running app. So as soon as you have different things in the libraries, that cannot be one shared part.
Okay, that's it. Thank you.
Another question?
Thank you. You said you're using Copods. Is there a reason you are not using Swift Package Manager?
Sorry, can you please repeat?
You said you're using pods. Is there any
Yes.
reason why you're not using Swift Package Manager?
No, there is no specific reason. The thing is that we have two apps which are quite similar, and like the reason why we do this is because there was only one app, and the running app was the first one published, and then the training app was supposed to be just an app which shows results and statistics from the running app. And since we decided to work on those two apps separately, that was just the way of working from some years ago. And now, if we would do such a things, and if we would reorganize our apps, it wouldn't make sense, because there is a higher chance that we will merge those two apps into one again than to do any kind of reorganization in the code again.
Okay, thank you.
You really woke up with the questions. Another one?
Question related to CocoaPods. Since you're using CocoaPods, do you use dynamic frameworks? And have you noticed, if you do, have you noticed an impact on app startup?
So yes, we use dynamic frameworks, and with the app startup, it behaves the same. But for that topic, I think that we can talk a bit more in detail after the question and
Sure.
Q. Thanks.
Very specific questions. You're really interested into this topic. Wow, sports people.
Can you hear me? Cool. How do you coordinate releases? Is it like you release both apps at the same time, or what do you do around that? And another question, so for example, you're working, focus of one app is on one feature, focus of another app is on totally something different. Library changes, and I can imagine that could introduce like more work to the app that wasn't expecting a change in this release. So how do you handle that?
Okay, first of all, thank you for the questions. To answer your first question, we always have release at the same time. And we have release managers who are monitoring both apps, like release managers for the running app, release manager for the training app. And they check every pull request which is open with library changes, and they approve what can go into the next release. Of course, we have project managers, but whenever we have some tricky situations, we rather decide not to merge if it's not going to be for both apps. And for your second question?
Yeah, the second one was, basically you answered both. So one was for the release, another one was for handling changes that aren't relevant to both apps at the same time. So thanks.
Okay, so for the handling changes, sometimes it can happen that it's really good thing to work with the libraries, but also it can happen that really slightly change in one library can be 2 or 3 days of work, because if you need to adapt some breaking changes in 5 different libraries, just because of the change in one library, it is a bit more complicated than if you would do it directly in the app. So there are different things.
Do we have even more questions?
Yes.
Wow.
So how do you manage tests in such an environment? So unit tests, integration tests, end-to-end tests?
Thank you for the question. We have all the tests written in running and training app. So whenever we do the changes in the library, we run the tests and we update tests in running and training app separately. But there are also some specific tests which we use, like snapshot tests. We use those tests because all the code at Runtastic app is written through the code, like all UI is written through the code. Now we have Swift UI, but before Swift UI, it was just code written UI, and we don't have any single storyboard there. So when it comes to snapshot testing, we test it in the library directly. But when we have unit tests and some other testing, like QA testing, we solve that in apps directly.
How do you handle permissions for project documentations and API documentations when you have different tribes? Do all tribes can have access to the same ones, or do you specify permissions based on the tribe?
Thank you for the questions. No, there are no specific permissions. Everyone can access every library. So it can happen that you need to touch a library that is not in your ownership, and you can do that, but just library owners are the ones who are going to review your code.
Some more? Yeah, a guy back there.
Do you do experiments? And if so, if you could briefly describe how your infrastructure looks like to support that, how you segment user base, how you track key metrics and things like that.
Thank you very much for the questions. Yes, we have A/B testing, and I can tell you one example where we used it. So we introduced sharing to Instagram and Facebook story, and we added like A/B test there just to check if our users are going to share more if they have sharing to social media stories enabled. And it showed us as a yes, so we kept that feature. And for the other things, we use Firebase Analytics, if that was your question.
Are we done with questions? Or one more from the guy.
Just one more. Just one more. So when you decide to bring some new feature to life and you make some kind of experiments or something like that, Do you always launch on both apps, or are you sometime targeting just running or the other app?
Thank you for the questions. Well, it really depends. Sometimes the change affects only one library, but if the change affects both libraries, we release it there. For example, if we would have a change in light tracking feature, that is a feature only in running app. And if you add changes there into the library, then you just need to update that library in the running app because it doesn't exist in training app. But if there is a library that is shared between two apps, we release both.
Somebody else, or?
Yeah, me, please. Back to...
Where are you? Okay.
Back to breaking changes in libraries. So when it does happen, you mentioned it could introduce like more work, 3 to 5 days. What do you do then? Do you like move the release date, or do you trim the scope, or how do you handle that?
So first thing that we do when we add task into our sprint is we check if the library which needs to be affected has dependent libraries or not. If that library has dependent libraries, we already know that it won't take us 1 day, but more days. And that way we can plan our work accordingly.
Ready? Okay, one more. Really inspiring lecture, I should say, obviously.
Yeah, hi. How do you handle libraries that have dependencies on one another? Like, for example, feed should have dependency on some profile, and profile should also have dependency on some feed, maybe to show it.
So first of all, we are trying to avoid circular dependencies. So such a thing doesn't exist there. But if we have libraries that are depending on each other, if we do change in one library and other libraries are dependent, we update all of them and release new version before we update pods in running and training app.
It's like an exam for you. You have all the answers.
Yeah, sounds like that.
Commission is here. Some other question from the jury? We are done? Okay, so many nice questions. I'm so proud of you. One big round of applause for Ivana. Thank you so much.